All right. As we're waiting for everybody to just find their seats, welcome back. So I am going to let this rock star introduce himself. We're going to get ready for our second session here. And I know you've been taking a lot of notes and asking a lot of great questions. So thank you for your engagement today. Without further ado, Chef Bruce Mattel.
Hi, everybody. Fine, thank you. My name is Bruce Mattel. I am the Senior Associate Dean for Culinary Arts here at the Hyde Park campus. I oversee the restaurant education, non-commercial food service, high volume production education, the beverage and service programming here all across, pretty much across the college. So I work with a dean, Brendan Walsh, and a team of great people. I have been here, well, actually, this coming May, it'll be 25 years. I am planning on retiring in April, so, but I'm going to stay on with the school in some capacity, yet to be determined. But I've been teaching here. I came as a teacher, as an instructor in 1998, and I taught a variety of different classes. And then I actually worked for admissions for a while, where I met this gentleman, Joe Tartaglia, out in Connecticut, where I would go on the road and do some demonstrations. And this actually demonstration you're going to see today is one that I used to do kind of on the road. I used to bring all this equipment. It was kind of cool. And the last 12 years I've been in the administration. So that's my story. I graduated here in 1980, the youngest graduate ever, 4.5 years old. Nobody has matched that. Robbie graduated at 6, so like he's I think you're third. I got it. But today I'm gonna, so with the pizza, I do. I wrote the catering textbook for the CIA. Yes, a couple of editions. I still get royalties. That's really what I pay attention to. No, I'm kidding. That kind of book, though, you know, catering, I used to own a catering business also, and that kind of book needs redoing every so often. So I don't think there'll be a third version from me, but Jesse, maybe you could get with some people and see what you could do there, you know? The new regime here, you know? Very lucky to have this guy. Wasn't he great? He's just amazing. And he's really, he didn't tell you, but he also he coaches our soccer team, and he's just all around fun to hang out with. I could drink him under the table though, but that. Oops. Anyway, I know I'm on a time crunch, and yet I like to try to be funny. My wife tells me I'm not funny, so I'm going to concentrate. In the theme of pizza, right? My favorite pizza really to eat is, I have two favorite kinds of pizza. I have sausage and onions I like, or anchovies. I love anchovies. There's a place up in Rhinebeck called Posto, and they make this great pistachio pizza. Has pistachios, and then I have them put anchovies on that. It's like one of my favorite things to eat. So if you go up to Posto, it's a really good place. But anyway, sausage. So most people buy sausage, right? It's a ton you could buy, and you could buy good sausage. I'm from the Bronx. I still go down to Arthur Avenue in the Bronx and pick up sausage there sometimes. Sometimes I get sausage with broccoli rabe in it. Sometimes I get the hot Italian sausage. Sometimes I get the Italian festival sausage that's thinner, has parsley in it and some garlic. Depends on the mood. But the bottom line is, sausage is a very practical thing to make yourself, because it could be made with trim, meat trim, right? Most of the time, people make either chicken sausage or pork sausage. One of the reasons why pork sausage is very popular is because both pork and chicken are fairly on the inexpensive side, and because pork fat has a pretty high melting point, but yet is very soft and supple, it blends really well together. And then chicken, when you make a chicken sausage, you're usually using chicken thighs, where you have some really built in some heavy fat there where it doesn't dry out. Because the worst thing when you make a sausage is if it dries out. And I bet you all of you have made a sausage at one point where you throw it on the grill and you see it like bubbling, and then you cut it and like it's granular and there's like fat coming out of it. That's a broken emulsion, because sausage is an emulsion. It's an emulsion of meat and fat. And the key to make that emulsion, now, if you know how to make pâtés and terrines and any force meat, what we call, it's all basically the same thing. We got to make an emulsion. We have to have that fat and meat stick together so we don't end up with this mealy, dry product after it's done. You can use binders in some of these products, like in pâtés. Sometimes we use a secondary binder called a panada, which is like soaked bread with milk and an egg. Or you could just use regular flour or potatoes or rice. There are secondary binders to help that, but fresh sausage, and it's usually just the meat and fat. And the key is everything got to be cold. And the key is the grinder has to be sharp. You want to avoid getting anything hot, because that's when the fat will start to melt, and that's when the emulsion will break. So you got to grind this stuff when it's really cold. You ice down your meat like I have here. You ice down your equipment, right? You ice down the bowl it's going to go in. And the meat, sometimes it's best to even put it in a blast chiller or a freezer for a little while to get it semi-frozen. Then typically, to make simple sausage, you're going to use more or less pork butt or trim. The key is the ratio of fat to meat. And usually the best ratio is 70-30, 70 lean, 30% fat. Now it sounds like a lot of fat, right? But pork fat rules, man. It does. It tastes good. I don't even think it's unhealthy too much. I know it had too much, I say, as a Lipitor patient, you know, but, but I love it. It's I love pork sausage. I love all kinds of pork sausage, whether it's a really good brat or it is a, Italian sausage, or it's a breakfast sausage. I love it all. So what I have here is this is pork butt. This is just plain pork butt. I bought bone-in pork butt, diced it up. That pork butt, commercially bought, is usually about 30% fat or so. So don't trim it. Like, don't cut off the fat and then cut your pork butt. Just cut it as is. Take the bone out if it has the bone in. Good? So all sausage really is the ground meat and spices, like most sausage, ground meat and fat, spices. Sometimes people put a little bit of water in, as I do. Sometimes they don't. And then it's put into a casing. Now, what is a casing? Yes, it is the intestine, typically the small intestine of what? Well, pig, yeah, could be. What else could it be? Sheep, what else? Yes, beef, and sometimes even collagen or man-made kind of, not necessarily synthetic. There is synthetic too, that you would peel off, like the plastic casings that you have on a liverwurst. Seaweed, yes, there are seaweed, vegetarian agar, and yeah, I actually, yes, but let's not go down there. That's way too much time here. But anyway, the basic natural, when you hear natural casing, we're good. And that's either hog casing for a sausage like Jesse just used, or that thin sausage, like a little breakfast sausage, or merguez, or that Italian festival sausage, that's sheep casing. And do you know actually a salami? That's beef casing, typically beef middles. It depends on the type of salami. It could either be beef middles or beef rounds. The rounds are a little bit bigger. And then you have mortadella, which is actually the bung or the intestine of the animal. So that's a really big casing, right? Love that mortadella though. I do love that. That's really a good represent. That's a beef appendix or beef bung, they call it. But most of the time when you see Italian sausage, you're going to see it in hog casings. most of the time, because some they do put in the thinner casings. Depends on the style. So that's what we're going to use today. And the casings, they are sold in hanks, or they are sold nowadays. It's very easy to get them automatically threaded on a piece of plastic, which makes them so easy to put onto your, what do you call that thing? Yeah, the sausage stuffer. Well, let's just call it that. There is more another name for that, but I can't pick it out. But anyway, first thing that usually you do, right, is you season. I'll bring this here to make it easy, Robbie. You season your meat, and I'm doing this here in front of you, but best time to really do it is at least the day before or so. And that's when you could actually get, like, the salt will start to draw out some of the myosin protein, which helps that. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this with gloves. Am I okay? I'm going to cook it, right? I'm going to cook it. The salt will draw out the myosin protein and also start an osmosis process like it does with any curing or marinating, right? And then some of these other spices or flavors will get imparted into it more deeply. So when I grind it and mix it, it's going to really be layered, all those flavors throughout. So for Italian sausage, what I'm going to do is add some pepper. And the recipe, you have a recipe. So this is in proportion. I had a recipe that was for 11 pounds. I had just under 4 pounds. So I actually cut it in 3. It's a third of the recipe. Kosher salt. I have some little bit of sugar in the form of dextrose. Why dextrose did I prefer here? Come on now, you're all educators. It's easier to dissolve, easier to mix in. I put a little bit of pimentone or sweet paprika, Spanish paprika in just to give it a little bit of color and some subtle flavor, and fennel seed. Now, you don't have to use fennel seed. There are Italian sausage without it. My son is not crazy about fennel seed. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll give you that. Yeah, no, I don't think I could argue with that. I mean, so you mix this up really good. Instead of water, I do not, and for no reason that I just never have, but I know that Italian festival sausage has red wine in it, little pieces of provolone and parsley, and it might be really nice. If I was going to use red wine, though, I don't think I'd put it in until I was just ready to kind of grind it, because red wine does have acid, and you could possibly denature the protein in here, possibly. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands for a sec.
Chef, while you're doing that, we had a question come in. Yep. Somebody uses frozen pork shoulder. Is there a significant difference between fresh and frozen?
I mean, it depends how many times it's been fresh or frozen. So if it defrosts and then refreezes and then defrosts and refreezes, look, if I was buying this for home, I would freeze like half of it. You know, I'd cut up my pork butt in half, freeze it, make sausage, and the next time pull it out. But the next time I try to, if it was frozen, I try to pull it out and time it. So I'm cutting it just partially frozen and then grinding it right away. So I don't have to get it that way. I would. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily, but it would probably make sense to do that. Okay. I'm not sure. I don't think so, because we're going to add a little bit of water to this anyway. So, and sometimes people even add ice. So I don't think so. So my bowl is cold, right? And my grinder's cold. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my grinder. Now I brought my little grinder from home. This is plastic. Obviously metal is better, because it will conduct temperature and stay colder longer. But since this is a demo and nobody's eating this, no, I'm kidding. This works fine. I do this at home all the time. If it fits, yes, there we go.
Do you prefer butt or shoulder?
shoulder and butt in my world are the same, but you could use picnic. Now, picnic is it's more of the front kind of, not the ham, but picnic is the front leg, the top of the front leg, not the shank. And you can use that as well. It's a little leaner. So I'm going to put my blade in, and my blade is nice and sharp. And then my die, not worried about a little water here. I'm going to make sure that's tight. Well, I used about a 1/4 inch. I like it a little coarser, but some people like it to grind a little finer. I just like it like this. Sometimes we do what's called a progressive grind, where you actually grind it through a large die first, chill everything again, and then grind it through a smaller die again. If you're gonna make a sausage that you want it to be really fine like that, that's the best way to do it. But this is kind of like a country style kind of sausage, you know what I mean? Where it's a little bit more rustic. So I'm gonna put this through. Jesse, this is your time to sing while I'm doing this, right? Now we can take some questions while I'm doing this.
Chef, I do have a question. As you mentioned, pork fat rules. One of our educators asked about steeping your fennel seeds in pork fat first to intensify the flavor.
Possible. I think that probably would have been a good idea today because we didn't give it a lot of time to marinate. However, I'm still making the sausage, right? So as long as I don't cook these sausage right away and I wait a day or so, they're going to still all those flavors will kind of macerate together, right? And you notice how this is just coming out easy, as much as you can see it. If it starts to struggle as it comes out here, and I see it getting like coming out the sides of the blade, you got to stop immediately, because what that is creating is called a fat smear, and that is a sure way to break your sausage. And you don't want to like just, you don't want to force it. You want to feed it like constantly, but you do want it to go fast. And why do you want it to go fast? To keep it cold, right? Because what's being created here as that machine works? Friction, and friction creates what? You guys are great. Did you all vote today? Thank God. Make sure you vote. How am I doing on time? Oh, good. Oh, that's perfect. I am going to make all of this just because I want to. Any other questions from the group so far? Yes, I do. The question is, do I have the attachment that I can make the sausage right out of here? I do. I don't like using it as much because it's up high. And I like this one. I can control it a lot better. I like to have I have 5-pound sausage press, but they come in bigger sizes. And the thing is, I just like to do it manually. I have a better feel on it, but you can just get a tube. It's actually 20 bucks. You get 2 tubes for this, and it's perfect. And this feels still really nice and cold. Okay. Okay. Next step, right? Next step, we put the meat on the mixer. And with the paddle, Jesse used the dough hook for his dough. I'm going to use a paddle for the sausage here. We're going to start mixing it. Oops. Helps if you take this off first. Now, when we mix this, it's gonna, with the salt in there and through this mixing, I'm gonna add a little bit of water as well, maybe about 1 ounce or so of water. And what that's gonna do is help draw out this myosin, the protein that's in meat. And that's gonna also help this get tacky and kind of sticky. And I'm gonna do it until I see it sort of like just sticking to the sides of the bowl. Once I see it started sticking to the sides of the bowl a little bit, it's going to be pretty much done. This also makes sure that all the spices and seasonings have been distributed well. Yeah, it's starting to stick now. You see that? The difference? All right. Okay, next step. So here I have a sausage stuffer, right? And this tube here is set for the hog casings that I have. There are thinner tubes and there are fatter tubes, not for this machine, but there are other larger models in this. You could actually put a large beef casing on there as well. But this here is really for hog sausage or for hog casings or sheep casings. I have it on a little bit of a wider one, and that's for the sheep casing. So what I'm going to do is put in my mixture here into this hopper. Very important, you always have you have the O-ring on this. And there's also a little valve that allows the air to escape before as it packs it down. And you'll see the hydraulic thing packs it down, the disc.
Jeff, if you were to dry cure this, would you use a different salt?
If I was going to dry cure this, I would use a couple of different ingredients. In other words, I'm not going to cook it at all, you mean? Like a dried salami or something? Yes, typically with that, you use another enzymatic kind of, well, pink salt's definitely the curing salt. If I put pink salt or TCM, tinted curing mix, it's typically tinted curing mixes like we call it Cell Rosé or pink salt. And that is 4% sodium nitrite and 96% salt. If I use that when I cook this sausage, it'll be pink inside like a ham, like a smoked ham. That's how you get that kind of color on these products like corned beef. In that cure, there are nitrites. Now, in dried sausage, we typically put nitrates that eventually, through the enzymatic process and the acidification that takes place, the lactic acidification, those nitrates turn into nitrites and eventually into nitrous oxide. So that's the full curing method. See, perfect size, right? You like that? She's saying, I think I'm giving up meat. Okay. So the first thing I do here is I get this down just so, and I'm going to use water here from time to time just to make sure everything stays nice and wet. It helps kind of lubricate everything that's going on. So I'm going to bring this down, right? And I'm going to bring it down just until I see the sausage starting to come out here. And I want to get a little bit of a little nub here. That's it. Then I'm going to reverse it. That's going to help the casing. When I have this little bit here hanging out, that's going to help the casing get on a lot better. You don't have to be afraid of using water here, by no means. So now I have and these are pretty cool the way they work. just basically you slide this on here. Oops. And using water always helps. Okay. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I can't do it in 10 minutes. Call Bounty. Tell them we're going to be late. No. Don't worry. I'm their boss in Bounty. So if they're late, Nicole, you could blame it on me, okay? Yes. Hey, good food takes time, no? I don't know what to tell you. Huh. Oh, the casings? And any of your meat purveyors could sell you this. What you do is even if you have to buy more than you need, you keep them in salt. Just keep them buried in kosher salt in the refrigerator, and they last for a long time. Huh? Just salt. Well, it's a hank. Yes, it's a hank of casing on a plastic strip. That's all I know. And there's a lot of this here, so I don't need all of this by no means to do this demo today. So I'm going to pull this out. See how this comes out? And I'm actually just going to, Rob, can you give me a knife? I'm just going to cut it because I don't need the whole hank for this amount. Thanks. I'm not positive. I just know it does roughly about 10 pounds of sausage. That's all I really know. Oop. Almost got away. And you could just use them like this too. You run water through them and then you find the end and you just thread it on like that too. You don't have to buy them on those things. I could easily just do this on this end, just find the end and then slip it on just like I did. So now I'm just going to tie this off lightly here and press it back on, okay? And then in 3.5 minutes, we're going to have sausage. Okay. So now what you do is you just let this you regulate it by your finger. Okay. You don't want to overfill it as you go down here. You don't want to overfill it. You got to leave a little bit of room. You want it to be kind of full, but if you're going to twist this into links, you have to leave some. So right now I feel it's a little tight, so I'll put a little bit more water on here, help with the lubrication. Not really. Anybody make sausage before? Oh, a lot of you. But did you know all this about sausage? Maybe. So there's a website called, actually, this is a very, very technical name, where you could buy some sausage equipment should you want it. Mr. Sausage, it's called. And you could get sort of like, it's not ultra commercial.
Chef, you mentioned getting the casing from a purveyor. Where else would they be able to get that?
Maybe a good butcher shop. They'd be able to get it for you. But, most places don't readily carry this because there's not really a high demand. What's that? Yeah, that's why I don't like to use it as much. I like this. Yeah. Okay. So now I have what I could do is here. I can roll this up. Right? Like they do in the butcher shops. What I did forget to bring, and I'm just being honest with you, is a teasing needle. You don't have one, do you? A teasing needle is used sometimes. I take the sausage, I wrap it like this, and there's this little needle, and I get some of the air out of it without making a thing. If he doesn't have one, it's still okay. We're still going to be able to be fine here. But at least I'm honest. Okay. No? Okay, no problem. So then now, making sausage. I like them to be roughly about 4 inches or so. So I turn one way, and then the next one, I turn the other way, right? And then this one, I turn this way, and then they lock in. Another way you could do it is go like kind of in between and just go like that, which is a lot easier. So you go in like in between. Wow, that happened naturally, that one. It's a little big though, but we'll let them go. You see why I left space? Because you need to, if as I tighten it, it's pushing it both ways. So you got to leave some room to be able to make sure it doesn't break. Now, if you break a sausage, it's not the biggest deal. You could just skip that one and, you know, put the meat on and save the meat and do it for the next time. And that's it. All right. So the only thing that was missing from this demo was that teasing needle. So I have a few air pockets. It's like a $2 thing. You buy it, you just, yes. Well, I would get chicken thighs and I would not trim them. I'd make sure that they're cold, and I'd leave any fat that's on them. And then, you know, what I often do, I put like sauteed onions in there. I add things that give it flavor and some moisture as well. But chicken sausage, you know, commercially, they do add like chicken and poultry fat to that too. But you can, or yes, or after it's mixed and you paddle, you could fold it in, but make sure they're cold, right? The onions have to be cooked in advance and chilled fully, as any of this stuff. Your recipe that you got either handed to you or emailed to you, that's green chili sausage. So that has actually that's one of my favorites. That has roasted poblano chilies that are diced up and a different spice mixture, but you make it the exact same way. The only thing you're doing different is when you do the mixing, you're adding your diced poblanos in at that time. Other questions, please. Anything? Politics? No, no, kidding. Yes. Yes, dry milk powder can be used also as a binder, as a secondary binder. It's a good option. That helps. What's that? What's that? I'm sorry?
How much powder would you put?
Probably about, for as much meat I have, probably about a 2-ounce cup of it or something like that by volume. I don't know what the weight would be, but not a lot. But it absorbs moisture and that helps. But now you're adding dairy product to it, so you have to be conscious with that, you know. But What else was I just gonna say? So there's many different varieties. This here is called a fresh sausage, right? There are fresh cooked sausage. So you could buy, like if you buy a bratwurst, you know, like the Swiss brats that are poached off or right? Those are actually cooked fresh sausage. Hot dogs are cooked smoked sausage, right? So is like kielbasa, like you said, right? Andouille, things of that nature. And it goes, the list goes on and on. You could have smoked uncooked sausage, right? You could have that. You could have also dried sausage that never gets cooked. So there's a bunch of different varieties in categories of sausage that goes into play. Are you making pizzas for everybody? All right. Anything else while we're dishing out? Because you're gonna have some samples here. Right.
Is there any reason or just?
Absolutely not. Just so bulk sausage. If I didn't want to do this whole thing with the casings, let's say my friend over there who's kind of like going off of meat, right? Maybe the casings kind of gross you out. I don't know, but you don't have to use casings. You could just make bulk sausage. When I make sausage like this at home, some of them I link up because I love a sausage and pepper sandwich. And I just like to grill these like that. And then some of it I just leave. So when I make pasta with broccoli rabe and fresh sausage and olive oil, it's crumbly, right? Otherwise, I got to take the meat out of here. You can definitely make patties. You know, I don't see many Italian sausage patties, but what you do see are breakfast sausage patties. You know what the difference between breakfast sausage and this is? The spice mix. Breakfast sausage is typically salt, pepper, a little bit of marjoram, and ground sage, right? So other than that, it's just the spice mix. Bratwurst is the same thing as this, except it has just different spice mixture. Has usually a little bit of nutmeg, salt and pepper, a little sugar. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same.
Do you recommend any kind of book on sausage?
Well, we have a really good book here, actually. It's called The Art of Charcuterie, and it's in the bookstore. It's written by my friend John Kowalski, and it's a really, really good book for sausage, but there are other ones too. I think there's one written by Donald Fink of New Orleans fame. He has a restaurant called Cochon that is really specializes in charcuterie. Cochon, C-O-C-H-O-N, and his name is Donald Fink. And who else? What was his name? The guy in Berkeley, Alice Waters chef, Bertoli. Bertoli, it was is a great charcutier. So I know he has a couple of books out there as well.
I think we have time for one final question I have here in the chat.
Okay.
And it's, when do you recommend blanching the sausage before final heating? And can you speak to blanching temps?
Yes. So a lot of sausage before final heating gets what we call poached off. So that should give this person the answer right away, because what's poaching temperature? 180, 170, right? And below like 185 where you get some simmering. So you want to poach it. You don't want you want this meat to coagulate and cook slowly. You have it in casing. If you put it into boiling water, these casings are going to bust open. They're just going to blow up and expand really fast. You need the expansion to happen really, really slowly. So you poach at that temperature. Now, I have poached Italian sausage for catering jobs, poached it off because I got to move my tuchus, you know what I mean? When I'm at the catering job. So sometimes it shortens the time frame. Also, to be honest with you, if I make my own sausage, I always test it by poaching one of them off to make sure I have the right emulsion. So that's another way to determine whether I'm bringing it to the catering job and I'm going to be successful with it on the grill, right? So those are all things that you need to think about. But hot dogs is an example where you buy hot dogs, they're fully cooked. Kielbasa is fully cooked. Now, hot dogs are typically smoked, cold smoked, and then they are poached. Kielbasi, like a country style kielbasi, that is hot smoked. So it's being smoked and heated at a temperature high enough to coagulate the protein also. So there's all different methods here. You couldn't really do that with hot dogs. I mean, you may be able to be successful, but the sheep casings are much too tender for that. You'd actually get probably an over smoke on it.
Chef, do you always poach it before you cook it?
No, no, most of the time I don't. I'm just saying that's an option.
Oh, okay.
That's an option. Sure. Anything else? No, you still have to have that emulsion. I could put cheese in there, but then if that's a mealy sausage, the cheese is going to melt and just run out of it. The cheese in a good in an emulsified sauce, that a sausage that's been emulsified properly, that cheese will stay in there, melt, and not ooze. So when you bite into it, you probably had a commercial probably like this, like cheddar brats or something. Yeah, they make them. They know how to make them. They make millions of them, right? So when you bite into them, you get little pockets of cheddar. But like if I made them really bad, it would just be like liquid. They'd be falling out. They would not be good. That's not cheating. That's smart. Exactly. Exactly. You have to be careful what cheese you put in. That's a very good point. Like you don't want to put in a really very soft, no brie in here. It'll just be like liquid, you know, it'll run out. It'll burn your lip like pizza cheese, you know. Sorry.
That's okay. I think that's all we have time for during our session here today. So for those of you joining virtually, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you.
Chef, a round of applause.
Thanks.